After like that claim came out, like we literally called 1,950 contestants of the 2,000. We couldn't get a hold of all 2,000. I couldn't find a single broken bone.
As well as a hand broken in 2 places during the briefcase challenge. They said they would pay the medical costs, but I haven't received any reimbursements, including for my Vegas return flight I self-booked yet. So I was talking to someone on Beast Games who broke their arm during the flag game, and he said they would cover all expenses if he showed proof of damage, X-ray, MRI, etc. So maybe look into that. Now, if you just want to see what I'm talking about in the title and thumbnail, I'm going to leave a timestamp here, but I'd highly encourage before you jump to this, that you do hear this part of the intro at least. An anonymous individual gave me access to a group chat called Beast Games 2024, which is a collection of a bunch of Beast Game contestants that played both in Vegas as well as Toronto. People from the games would join in as they were eliminated, and a lot of these contestants spoke about their experiences in the games, and they were talking about these experiences since July. So I spent in total about 15 to 20 hours combing through every single message that was sent from then until just a couple days ago. Went ahead and screenshotted the most important ones and censored those, and now in this video I'm going to be using these screenshots to make a couple of points. Look, people are tired of MrBeast. This has truly gone on for well over half a year at this point. I think for a good chunk of people, they're just kind of burned out, and outside of Jimmy just icing someone on camera, people aren't gonna care. I'm not saying people are wrong for that or that I'm upset by it. I just acknowledge that that's gonna happen with something that's, you know, clearly outlived its news cycle repeatedly. If I was just entirely a journalist, I would do everything I could to just make as many videos as I could and hope for another big piece of drama so that I can, you know, pay rent. But I am interested in what's going on here. I would not have spent the hours that I did combing through every single message to just make something to make a quick buck. I am making this video because I found information that I believe is very much the truth and completely goes against the claim that Jimmy had made in his interview with Oompaville, where he said that they didn't find any broken bones. There is one individual in particular who refers to himself as the person who broke their hand twice, as if that would be recognizable for other contestants. With something like that in these group chats, I am confident enough to say that Jimmy did straight up lie about saying that, hey, we couldn't find any broken bones, etc. I'm willing to do that. I'm willing to go legally with that because I know for a fact that they were aware of it, because the Beast team let anyone who was injured know that they would cover medical expenses so long as they showed proof of it. My second point that I want to make is that I believe a lot of the contestants are downplaying the negative experiences that they had for their own personal benefit. That isn't to say that everybody or the majority of people had a negative experience and are lying about it. It is only to say that I do believe, and I think I have evidence of people downplaying the experiences of others or even themselves because they don't want to burn the bridge and ruin the opportunity to be on future videos of MrBeast. But with that gigantic preamble out of the way, I hope you enjoy the video. Let's start things off with the most damning example of one of these broken bones. Now, this individual was replying to somebody else, and this was in regard to people that had gotten like knee injuries from the games. That isn't directly just like broken bones, anything like that. But this individual replied to them. They said, "Me too. Torn meniscus and severe bruising on both knees. Took 2.5 weeks until I wasn't limping badly, as well as a hand broken in 2 places during the briefcase challenge. They said they would pay the medical costs, but I haven't received any reimbursements, including for my Vegas return flight I self-booked yet." Now, in regard to them not being paid yet, that is something that pretty much every contestant shared in, saying that they hadn't received funds for something yet, or for any, you know, injury, or even just getting paid the $2,000 that they're all guaranteed for competing, which originally was $1,000. They gave them another $1,000 after Vegas was such a shit show. But point being, do not focus on them not being reimbursed for the medical costs, things like that. From my understanding, they were paid, so don't sweat about that. But we should focus on the fact that they are self-admitting that they had 2 places that their hand was broken in, hand broken in 2 places during the briefcase challenge. And the fact that they said they would pay the medical costs. Beast Games would not be paying the medical costs if they weren't aware that they needed to pay them. This is a really dumb way of me saying they have to know that his hand was broken in 2 places. And as we'll see from further screenshots, the way that you get these medical costs paid for by the Beast team is by showing proof through x-rays, MRIs, etc., that the injury did happen. But to further validate this individual specifically, they spoke in the chat multiple times and referenced themselves as the person that broke their hand. He says here, "Hey guys," and he gets into a bit more detail, which I didn't feel comfortable including, but this guy with the twice broken hand from the briefcase challenge in Vegas. I never officially posted my info. And then thirdly here, yeah, I was the older guy there with you all, and a couple others who had the same strategy. I was injured in an earlier challenge and could barely run at all, so I was really hoping that enough people would be eliminated, but unfortunately it didn't happen. And this is him referencing his torn meniscus and the 2 bad knees that he had to just kind of further corroborate the same story that he was telling. Now there are some moments where there are rumors that are kind of being spewed about between the contestants, and they're kind of sharing them, and sometimes the stories get twisted, but I wanted to show you guys a second alleged breaking of bones, that being someone's arm. And I understand and came into this with the understanding that, hey, maybe some of these like rumored things versus people actually saying, hey, this happened to me, maybe that's what happened, and then, you know, rumor mill started, telephone game, and now a hand being broken in 2 places turns into an arm being broken. Now, I don't think that it's the same person, and there's a couple of reasons for that. Here is what I'm talking about, and I don't think it's the same individual that broke their hand, and I'll explain it after I read. So this individual is replying to someone saying, no, I got tackled during the briefcase challenge and I busted my knee. My knee has been hurting ever since, and the message continues, but it gets cut off. This individual replied, so I was talking to someone on Beast Games who broke their arm during the flag game, and he said they would cover all expenses if he showed proof of damage, X-ray, MRI, etc. So maybe look into that. Now, the reason that I think that this is a separate incident is that number one, it's focused on the fact that this took place during the flag game, which is different from the briefcase challenge. And on top of that, the reason that I believe that this allegation is more credible than not is that the rumor came with that individual saying that they would cover their expenses if he showed proof of damage, which further goes along the same lines as what happened to the individual that said they did break their hand. Also, this person is not saying that this is a rumor. He said that he spoke to a person that broke their arm. And I feel like if you're speaking to someone whose arm is broken, it's pretty clear that their arm's broken. But on top of that, them also including that individual said, yep, your medical, costs will be covered if you show them proof of the injury. I feel like they would only say that to people that got injured. That could be something that they're just expecting as well, but again, I think more likely than not, this was another case, someone who broke their arm and did speak with the team saying that they would cover their costs, meaning that they were aware of this injury. Following up that message, as you can see at the top of this one here where it says, maybe look into that, 2 people responded. Firstly, someone said, I heard from someone who got hurt on the trap doors that they offered to pay medical expenses up to 1 year relating to the injury. And then someone else commented, and there's the girl in here who had a seizure. They paid her stuff in Canada already. Now, 2 big points to be made here. Number one, someone was injured to such a degree that they offered to cover the medical expenses up to a year. Now, maybe that is just how it happens, like no matter what kind of injury you get or whatever injury you sustain on the set, they're willing to pay up to a year. But I think the fact that they're offering to pay for expenses up to a year implies that either there was some sort of cast or maybe, some sort of device or whatnot, or the recovery time was expected to be more than just, a couple of days. That could just be my bias speaking there. I'm not a medical professional, nor am I an insurance professional. So if somebody in the comments knows a bit more in regard to like standard procedure with like how they cover medical expenses in regard to injuries on set, really appreciate it. But on top of that, there is also a girl who had a seizure in Canada. And from other messages that we're gonna see, including the individual that they're talking about, the girl who had the seizure, actually talking about her experience, there's also someone that said there was a second seizure that happened at the Toronto games. There were incidents at the Vegas games, but I wanted to make it clear that they are aware of, and we are recognizing that there were incidents like this in the Toronto games. As a matter of fact, let's just jump to it right now. Now, people were talking amongst each other about the seizures that had happened, and some people were like, the ones from Vegas, and someone had responded, no, these are new seizures somehow, haha. Then, person responded saying, I had one right after being eliminated, never had one before. The producers wouldn't let my friend come with me to the hospital. It was a nightmare. And someone responded, blank, I heard about this. Are you feeling okay now? And she responded back, yes, thank you. I'm just so sore. Still don't know what caused it. I did hit my head after the drop, so maybe that, but the doctors in Canada sucked, gave me zero info. The only good thing was the producer brought Feastables to the hospital. Now, I'm not saying that this is the female version of House and they are perfect at diagnosing what is going on, but I think the fact that they're saying they had no history of seizures prior, not epilepsy, anything like that, And then they had the seizure after they hit their head when they were dropped, I'm assuming from the trap doors, that it may have been caused by the drop and the fact that they hit their head. Maybe that is why the seizure happened. To be fair to Jimmy Donaldson, he didn't say anything about people not having seizures on the set of the Beast games. And so far we have a seizure, a self-admitted, broken hand from the games, and then someone reporting that they spoke with an individual who broke their arm. Following that up, let's get into someone who injured their back severely enough that they were hospitalized. This contestant commented, "And I got hurt on set when I dropped from the platform. They hurt my back really bad, but they took me to the hospital, and yes, they paid for everything, so don't always believe what you hear." Now this individual, again, they're like, hey, don't believe rumors of them like not paying medical costs, it sounds like, but they did get dropped during the trapdoor experience and screwed up their back enough that they got hospitalized and it's getting paid for. They don't go into detail talking about any broken bones or exactly what the injuries did entail, but just severe enough that they were hospitalized. But they also commented in a few separate spots here, but someone had also said, yes, I also hurt myself. The individual who hurt their back said, you have to remember it's a game and that's what we signed up for. Nothing was intentional. Someone else replied, my ankle got hurt when I got dropped, but I heard some people literally got hospitalized, which was that above contestant. And I didn't want to just completely cut this off. Other people had good things to say, like, gotta say the medics on site were amazing. And then the same person that injured their back followed up with, are you guys going to do season 2? I'm coming back with a different game plan. So a very optimistic outlook on whatever happened to them. And clearly it's not bad enough that they won't be coming back for a second season or, wouldn't be able to. In conjunction with that, we also have contestants replying to some of these, people that are messaging about getting injured. A contestant replied to the individual that got their back hurt, saying that is genuinely horrific. How could they not check to see if they had enough foam? The contestant doesn't actually follow up and respond to that at all, but they messaged two other separate people saying, hey, what's up? Happy to hear from you. And someone replied back to, them trying to reach out to them saying, doing well and glad to be recovering back at home now. I hope you recover from your back injury. I'm sorry you got hurt. This might not even be an injury, what they're talking about recovering back at home. From what I saw, a lot of these contestants just getting back into the average daily rigmarole was really tough because you're going from this very high octane, absolutely zero sleep on, 48 hours awake, going through these intense challenges, winning exorbitant amounts of money or just walking with nothing. Going back to a 9 to 5 after that is sometimes pretty brutal. And a lot of people were experiencing just getting back into their normal way of life, that couple weeks, that itself was a recovery period. So it could be that, or this person could be recovering from an injury as well. Not 100% sure, but I want to just, keep that objective. It's possible it's either. Now, a few of the contestants tended to delete a lot of their messages, and that had to do with the fact that this group chat over the course of, a few months was leaked several times. Now, I'm not trying to persuade you into the belief that any of these deleted messages are always having to do with something that's not okay. There were a few times where it was very clear based on the messages surrounding the deleted ones, as other people are like, hey, why'd you delete those? Or things of that nature, that it was clear that they were trying to hide any information regarding to, the outcomes of the challenges or, what contestants were getting eliminated, etc., because this was months before the show even got released. So it makes sense that these individuals didn't want any of, the actual show itself to be leaked, because then it could also be seen as them breaking NDA and then they're in a buttload of trouble. But what I can say is that there were a few examples of them deleting messages that did have to do with some type of injuries on set, things of that nature. This is an example of one of those instances. So on WhatsApp, this is somebody replying to a message. And an interesting thing about WhatsApp is that if a message gets deleted, but before it's deleted, someone replies to that message, it saves the first section of the message to be visible in their reply. So this message was deleted. I can't necessarily show you where it was deleted, but someone replied to it. So we can see that it said, I know several people were injured in the trapdoor challenge, myself included, minor. One girl is in a FO, and then it just completely cuts out. So we don't know what the rest of that is. Now I'm not going to try to Sherlock my way into figuring out what FO could continue to mean, but this was one of those examples where there are potential other injuries that we're not aware of because they were, keeping it hush hush. But moving on, let's cover a few of the remaining injuries that I had found that haven't really been talked about yet. Another example here is someone saying currently at an urgent care getting an x-ray on my tibia and fibula from the trapdoor fall. And then, some people like, holy cow, like you actually fell through a trapdoor. This is very early on in recording and filming. And they finish it up with an update that there was just a muscle tear and bone bruise and no breaks, thankfully. Still. And then a separate individual replying to someone asking about an injury they were talking about. And they said, no, it just happened while I was getting on the bus after filming. I got stuck trying to get into the seat and had my leg turned weird. The physical therapist at my work said it actually happens a lot with people getting in and out of seats on airplanes, so be careful everyone. Everyone in the medic area kept asking if it was from the drop though. Now they could be asking if it was from the drop because then they're going, oh, it's medically, like the cost is on us if it happened during the game. Or they could be asking because they were expecting it, being as there were clearly multiple injuries from the trapdoor drops. I don't think this example in particular holds much weight against them. I just felt like it would be useful to include it just to show that there were examples of people getting injured where it wasn't related to a negligence of the Beast team. It was just an accident. Now, onto the Hornets. People were chatting about their experience in Beast City, and someone said, low-key, my only complaint in the city was the bunks not having good AC. Other than that, they did a great job and had everything stocked with what we needed, to be honest. And then someone replied to their message saying, don't forget the Hornets. And then someone else replied, they were friendly. And someone else replied, yeah, that too, but the traps helped a little. And I think they're referencing traps that were used for the Hornets. It's good that they helped a little, but there's more. At the top there, you can see that a message was deleted, but someone replied to someone saying, didn't get stung, but boy, did I get scared a few times. And the reply said, bro, mad people got stung. You lucky you're not one of them. And then someone else commented, nah, don't let Rosanna hear that. You right. Rosanna already knows about the second challenge, bruh. And then they just start, doing a bit. No one got stung. I don't know what you mean. Nobody got stung. Well, apparently a lot of people got stung. And then to top that off, I had found someone saying, yeah, a girl in my cabin got stung right on the lip. I felt so bad for her. Pretty much guaranteeing that gal did not get any camera time. But to close this segment of the video out, we get to talk about the city rash. Someone replied to someone saying, really? Saying, yeah, I didn't get the city rash, but now my skin is not happy. And then someone said, so far I'm normal. Another person said lucky, and then someone replied in quotes, the city rash with a skull emoji. And someone else just replied to them saying, if you know, you know. Genuinely, I think that can be taken in two ways, either, being on the in crowd of knowing what this rash was, or it could also be reference to the fact that a couple of people butted uglies, I believe, in the Vegas games, but apparently people were sheboying under the stage, things like that. I have screenshots of that. I guess I could just show them real quick. I've labeled these screenshots freak games. People said, whoever did it in the stadium was foul. Someone else said facts. Someone else said, lol, just caught up on all that tea. I heard people were doing it under the stages too. Thanks for the good laughs today. And finally, someone asking, did that really happen? Another person followed up. Apparently, people got eliminated because they were doing it in the bathroom of the stadium. You know how there was a gender-neutral bathroom? I guess bro had her pinned up on the sink and was going to Pound Town. Now this could be the other thing that they're referring to, the city rash, but I doubt it. I don't think that many people were sheboying, and even if that, I don't think anyone was at Canada, or at least I couldn't confirm that. But back to the information, some people were talking about their experience and talking about the housing that they had in the city. And so someone's talking about it saying bunk beds, memory foam mattresses, people were having allergic reactions to the blankets and pillows, and the shower water too. And then so they're talking about, the randomly assigned rooms, read it at your own pace. And then someone said, OMFG, even the water gave an allergic reaction? That's wild. And then I found other people talking about it saying the showers made my face break out bad. Someone said runs out quick. I believe the same person is here saying, thankfully they did have medics who had cream to apply to our face. And then someone else was responding to that saying, OMG, my face still hurts. And then this individual is talking about the pharmacy cargo container, but someone else replied about the showers making their face break out saying same. And then someone else replied to the same subject saying, my skin is freaking the fuck out now too. And then someone just saying that they just got burnt. And then someone else replying to this individual saying, I'm glad we figured that out together, investigating our elimination, meaning potentially that this individual also had some issues with that. Honestly, the Hornets sound a lot worse than, what was going on with the reaction to the shower water or the pillows, blankets, whatnot. I'm glad that they had, creams on hand to help with that. I think with anaphylaxis and that whole bit that the Hornets are absolutely much more of a danger, but I felt, hey, I found it interesting. Let's include it as well. But I want to shift over to talking a bit more about the second point of this video. And that is that the contestants that were a part of this game, I think a lot of them have a lot of reasons going for, not talking badly about what has happened. I think there's some easily understandable reasons, that being like, if you're a part of something like what they were over, July, August, September, when all of this shit was hitting the fan, if you're about to get a fat check from doing this, just realistically, are you gonna want to look into this? Are you gonna want to find out that the people that you're competing in a game, like the people that are putting on this event, if they've done like terrible things or whatever, like, do you want to know about that? Or do you just want to, do the thing, play the games, get your money, get out, and then figure that all out? I wouldn't even say that that's directly malicious. I think it's just like, I would rather focus on getting my paycheck and then getting out and dealing with that. But on top of that, I think that they want to keep the connection that they have with MrBeast, the Beast Games itself, anything like this, any other connections they meet in this industry, because that is a huge part of being successful in the entertainment industry. I'm an acting coach. I've been out to LA multiple times. I understand that that is a huge part of the game, and I don't knock people. That's part of the gig. That's what you do in this job. And I think there are a couple others that we could theorize on, but the biggest one is the fact that there were 2,000 people competing in this game. That's a lot. Even if you're like a crazy social butterfly, the people that you will generally say that, you have a good understanding of who they are at this time, like to this day, I think it's like at most 100 people. Like, I think they've done the science on that. It's about 100 people. I don't think there's a single contestant that is going to for sure know every single, negative, positive thing that happened in these games. And I think there is a good chunk of people who had only positive experiences, because out of 2,000 people, there are people that are bound to have had a good time. There are people who are bound to have a bad time. And then there was like what went wrong with production, like where things went wrong, when things weren't accounted for, what wasn't prepared for, like anything in between. And like from our perspective, when you're getting into something like this, especially with like your perception of MrBeast going into this without knowing any of the drama that's hitting the fan as they're doing this, as they're filming this, keep in mind, like they started filming this in like late August, July, like going into September. That's when everything was blowing up. Like, as far as they are concerned, since they're in this bubble, like they're literally being housed by the Beast team, everything like that, why would you believe any of this BS that's going on outside of things? You have all these people competing for money in Beast Games, which is receiving a good fare of, bad publicity as well. If you're having a good time and now you're hearing these outside stories of these bad things happening, like, don't you want to kind of push back on that? Like, don't you want to say, hey, like, that's not happening to me? Like, this is stupid. People are just making stuff up because they're trying to screw the guy over. That's fair to me. Like, that makes sense. And I didn't think that made sense going into this, but after reading through the messages and like recognizing when they were filming this and when people were talking about what they were talking about, it makes so much more sense. I am preambling all of this to talk about the individual, or I should say the potential multiple individuals who received neck injuries in regard to the rope pulling that happened in Vegas. I say injuries because I cannot ascertain with certainty that any individual was necessarily choked, but I can confirm that multiple people talk about the fact that the rope got around people's necks and then either the contestants working on their team stopped or that person was able to get out of the way. Here are some of the other contestants talking about it. Someone said, just to add a little perspective from what I've been told from others on the red team, not my experience, many stopped pulling because people were getting hurt in the back, trampled, and the rope was around someone's neck. Then we were told to keep pulling and finish it, and we went back to pulling and it wouldn't budge. Personally, I was in the middle and wasn't pulling on the rope since there wasn't enough room for that many people, but this is what was shared with me after the fact. Now, this specific subject was talked about, and it was very polarizing. There were people saying that there was absolutely no way that it happened, and other people saying, hey, we don't know if it happened. If you didn't see it, that doesn't mean that it didn't happen. And you'll see that kind of show up multiple times. But people are discussing, and this contestant says, the ropes were thick and heavy. How is it even possible to have it wrap around someone's neck? And then someone else said, if people were tripped / on the floor, it would have been very easy for it to be around someone's neck. Then someone replied again, kind of being, a little aloof, right? It's pulled in a straight line. That's interesting. Now, as we saw in Rose Millett's video, They weren't always pulled in a straight line. Some of the ropes were like curved and bent around because the rope, if you did try pulling it all the way into the back, you were gonna hit the back wall. Someone else messaged, I saw that happen on both teams too. Folks definitely got knocked down, walked on. I didn't see anyone get tangled up in the rope. It was a mess. It was definitely hard, and I feel bad for all the people that got hurt. Yellow team spent a lot of time trying to figure out a method to communicate with the whole team to prevent problems, but it's just a chaotic environment. A lot of the plan just goes out the window when you're in the moment. And then someone else messaged, I just wanted people to know that little tidbit that was relayed to me once we were out. But I'd like to also point out that no one wanted to go home that day or at all. But a lot of this invalidation and negativity towards the red team and our experience is hard to deal with. Please understand we all have different experiences and we all have our reasons for ending up in the teams we did. They're saying this because a lot of people were like, there's no way that that happened. And then a lot of people saying that the way that the teams were set up in Vegas was completely fair and just when it was very clear that it wasn't. I don't really feel the need to get into it. It's kind of been covered multiple times before, but people keeping jerseys away from, women, older people, and smaller people. And there were a lot of contestants that were arguing that the games were fair regardless, which just wasn't true. So people were getting frustrated and felt like their experiences like this were being invalidated. As a matter of fact, we have this example. This individual replied to someone saying, completely understandable. Can you point out what exactly was said negativity and invalidation towards the red team? They replied, not directed at anyone or you specifically, but I've been in this chat since pretty much day one, so this is overarching. But there's a lot of people that have said things like we're simply not good competitors, that we weren't there for enough of the experience to really complain or share it, that there weren't messed up things that happened during team picking. Just an overarching invalidation of our experiences. I think the big takeaway is that just because you didn't have the same experience doesn't mean it didn't happen. I'm very grateful to be a part of this large community and have the opportunity to get to know more people, but it definitely makes me take a step away from it all. So again, it's not like all contestants are just working for the beast and coming to his defense or anything like that. These are, for the most part, people, and they have reasons to be behaving the way that they are or making the choices or telling their experience the way that they are. But at the end of the day, I'm not trying to make these contestants look like bad people or make them look like great people. They're just people. And what I'm doing with this is trying to showcase that there are reasons or, assumptions that can be made based on, their situation, where they're at in the games and what they have to gain from it, to talk about why they might not talk about what was going on, or that they just perceived their experience in a much more positive way because of the things I said earlier. To continue with the rope allegations, we have this example where they had taken a screenshot from a Times Magazine article talking about the neck thing, and they asked, is this true? I hadn't heard about it getting around someone's neck and that being the reason why the red team stopped pulling. Someone said, I didn't personally see it, but I know people who did. That was common knowledge in red team as soon as it happened. And then someone else commented, not trying to be insensitive, but how could that happen organically or without someone messing around / doing something we weren't supposed to do? The rope was super thick and was hard to bend, plus we were all so tight next to each other. How did the rope even wind up high enough to go around someone's neck? Someone said, no idea. Another individual said, I thought the same, but then one of my good friends from BG told me how the rope got wrapped around her stomach and how bad it hurt. Then someone else said, I talked to the girl, but didn't see it happen. It was just this freak thing when they all fell down at the end of the rope and ended up around her because people let go. This person talks about talking to the girl that it happened to. And this is gonna come up later, but there's a lot of people in this group chat at this point, so there's a lot of messaging, people miss stuff. Continuing on, someone had said she wasn't fooling around and it just happened. And then someone else replied, trying to say this doesn't really make sense. And someone else messages, they would have had to immediately fall backwards onto the ground, neck / head landing on the rope. Then people would walk backwards with the rope, catching onto their chin and wrapping around the neck. I can't imagine anything else. And someone else says stomach seems more feasible than neck, saying well, it makes more sense that someone could have had the stomach injury. And then someone else replying, I think the same person from earlier, saying that they had talked to the girl, saying she still kept going on with the games, but it just happened. Things happen. Just because you didn't see it happen doesn't mean it didn't happen. I hope she's okay. But now more people have jumped into the fray to argue about this. Someone replied to that Times Magazine article saying there's no way that's possible. The rope was way too damn big to be able to wrap around someone's neck. Plus we were standing in straight lines. How the hell would that have been able to happen when all we had to do was pull the damn thing? I remember looking over at the other teams briefly as I began running back and saw Red was trying to just pull it rather than the running back technique, which is where they lost because they took too long to figure that out. It had nothing to do with the weight or power. It was 25 pounds per person. They're just trying their hardest to get their bag. Someone kind of replied to them saying, again, just because you didn't see it doesn't mean it didn't happen. And someone said, you're right. I'm just thinking about the science behind it, which was like, yeah, I just really, really, really doubt you, which is fair. They didn't see it. Someone else replies to the person saying, just because you didn't see it doesn't mean it didn't happen, saying, doesn't mean it happened either. We just hope the individual is okay if it did happen. Someone else says, it does sound a bit far-fetched, but I don't speak on things I didn't see. If they're telling the truth, they will get what they deserve. If they're lying, karma will come back to bite them in the ass. Either way, I hope they're okay. Continuing on, someone says, the only reason I'm saying that is I too was like, there's no way, but one of my friends was like, no, yes way. It wrapped around her stomach tight and then she fell into a pile after. She was on yellow. I also don't think it's MrBeast team's fault that it happened. It happens, no one is perfect. And then someone else had this big message, saying a lot of the allegations are far-fetched because a lot of them we did live together. Everyone experiences things differently, but when the ratio of 2K people lean one way versus the other, it says something. From my understanding, this class action lawsuit is with a whopping 5 contestants out of 2K. Sure, many others may have had that same experience and don't want to risk breaking NDA, but the math isn't mathing with some of this stuff. This is also based on what I have read. I'm really trying my hardest to actually not feed into watching or reading the news about it, so anything I have said could be subject to change and feel free to correct me if it has. Anyhow, there were many cameras, record-breaking amount to be exact, in both Vegas and Canada. Whatever happened, if it happened, will be revealed. Just to start off, I think that last thing about it being revealed is a bit naive. I don't think that they would release that footage if they had it, but on top of that, like they said, they haven't really looked into much of what was going on around them, so they just want to focus on trying to keep positive. And I think 5 contestants out of 2K, again, yeah, that is an absolutely small number, and it could just be their negative experiences 100%. There were rumors of another settlement that had happened with an individual who got eliminated early, and they got $115,000, allegedly, rumored, from the settlement that they had against MrBeast. Editor Connor, because I completely forgot to go over this, here are the screenshots showcasing that alleged settlement. Person says there's a rumor she got a settlement, then someone else responding a settlement, and they're saying for like 115K or something. Someone else saying settlement for what? Being eliminated? Is it because she was online saying that this ruined her life? All kinds of shit. And so someone else responded to it saying this doesn't make any sense with how settlements work. If anything, they can fine her for 100K per the NDA. Someone else said, I heard the team reached out to her and told her they wouldn't sue. And then someone said, I don't believe that. And someone else saying, that's at least what she said in the video, but she went silent. And then someone else saying she has to start a lawsuit to settle, and if that happened, it would have been publicized, which I don't think is necessarily true. And someone said, I've heard the rumor from like 16 people so far. And well, most times they settle out of court. And then over here, says emotional damage, I guess emotional damage, like figuring out what they were talking about or like what the grounds for the suit would be. And someone said she signed a contract. Some other person saying they didn't want her talking too much. And they said emotional damage and the unfair wages, not getting medication, not eating. She had a bunch of stuff to say, lol. But yeah, just wanted to make sure this was included so you guys saw what I was talking about. But on top of that, I do want to focus on this line specifically where they say, many others may have had that same experience and don't want to risk breaking NDA, etc. It is super easy for us as like just viewers of this kind of stuff to be like, oh, it's an NDA. That doesn't mean that, you can talk about this stuff, but you can't talk about this stuff. If you're given an NDA, especially with the threat of $500,000 against you or $100,000 even after the show airs, you're probably not going to risk it. Some of the people thought that they couldn't even talk about the show in a disparaging way based on how it was written in the contract. And I'll show you more screenshots of that. But there were a lot of reasons that I think people are not going to be interested in getting in on a class action lawsuit or even just speaking up about their experiences, good or bad. I think you're going to see more of the good ones because, the Beast team is going to support and be happy with them releasing, positive things. But even then, people were very worried about releasing any kind of anything in regard to this. But continuing on, someone left this comment, I feel like in this chat, we act like everything is a conspiracy. I know some people may exaggerate events that happen to them. I just feel bad if something truly bad happened to someone and we are taking that away from them. I just hope they are okay whatever event did occur. From my experience reading through their chat, it really felt like almost everything that was brought up, situation-wise was conspiratorial, was just rumors. And it really took someone stepping up and being like, hey, this happened to me. This was my experience, for them to go, oh, okay, it's real. Then someone else kind of followed up saying, that's exactly what I mean. This ain't got nothing to do with me. I had a decent time, I'm not suing, and I didn't get hurt. But I can't imagine someone who did get hurt and seeing people in the chat saying it didn't happen or they're doing this for money and attention. Just keep an open mind, y'all. There's a good reason why a lot of people aren't airing their grievances into the specific group chat that I had access to. There were a lot of very big fans of MrBeast in this group chat, and there was a lot of going, that didn't happen, or downplaying things, or just saying that the games were just completely fair, and if you lost, you know, sucks, but that's, you know, you got beat out. Last point specifically, because the games were pretty unfair, a lot of this came down to luck, and if you just watch the show, you'll get that. But I'm sidetracking a bit. Let's get to the main part. Someone, again, says, I don't want to say something didn't happen since I didn't see it, but I just can't imagine how those ropes could bend enough to wrap around someone's neck. They were like ship ropes, they were so thick. And then someone replied, I met the girl it happened to on yellow team. Her neck was red, basically a freak accident when everyone fell on top of each other. It's like, oh, it's because of the dog pile? Yeah, she had gone down and lots of people were letting go of the rope, but some people from the back were still pulling, so it just became this loop right over her essentially. Oh, so it did happen. Damn! I'm assuming damn. And someone else messaged after the, oh, it did happen, damn, saying there's no way they'll show that in the YouTube video, but damn, it's definitely on camera. Continuing on, someone said, I heard about it like it spread around pretty fast, but with all the BS info flying around, could never be sure. And then additionally, supposedly, it happened to another individual, this one being a guy. Now, apparently there were 3 potential people that had some like neck related injuries, but the third one, it doesn't seem as legitimate and it could have just been a twisting of one of these 2. But this person says, yeah, I personally know the guy who got their neck wrapped up in the red team during the tug challenge. We're good friends. Don't believe that happened on yellow unless that was near the back. I was on that team and didn't hear that incident. But the guy who got his neck wrapped on red team is likely why they stopped the pulling at some point and yellow took the last win for that challenge. Essentially, people tripped and some people were not working in unison, and people in the back kept pulling as the rope got caught between someone's arm and neck. Luckily, his quick reflexes prevented a chokehold from the rope. It happened when he was on the ground, which was why he managed to get in that situation. Hope that clarifies that confusion. So it isn't just a rumor. He's not currently holding charges, but may consider it. Looks like from the reading, some others got caught in rope as well, which isn't hard to believe as it had already happened to one person as mentioned above. The reason why Time magazine may have gotten a hold of it somehow, because the guy who got caught in the rope was interviewed after the competition and he explained the situation. Not sure how it got leaked, but that's another story. And then I'll just have this on screen if you want to pause. This is the other potential experience that had been had where, you know, potentially a third person was also caught by the rope around the neck there. But you can see even in this group chat, which was, you know, probably 300, maybe something like that, people at that point, even at that point, you know, hearing stories of something that had happened where, you know, pretty much all of them were in that game. Like that was very early on in the Vegas games. Even at that point, with everyone in the same room, they still were like willing to say, I don't think that happened, even though it potentially happened 3 times, but more seemingly like it for sure happened twice. And if you think that it's bad just in like this group chat, it happened in my YouTube comments. So this gentleman here, Masias7125, who was a Beast Games contestant, as you can actually see in their little picture there, had replied in my video where I talked about and dissected the Rose Millette expose of MrBeast. He said, this dude, yes, it's a dude, has got to be one of the biggest man-child contestants in MrBeast history, LMAO. In my opinion, he's worse than Jake Weddle, lol. He's just mad that he got eliminated in the first round. They commented a few times, I didn't really particularly care, but then they had this one. They were talking about that they were, you know, in the Beast Games show and talking about their experience, and then they specifically talk about something down here that I want to show you. He says, and no one was strangled in a rope, lol. We had to pull it, not tie it around ourselves, dude. Rose was part of the red team who got eliminated first round, so he simply used it as an excuse to try and get a lawsuit towards MrBeast, since when in reality, no one was strangled at all. There was nothing negative to say other than the food being gross, which yeah, it was the only negative thing that happened there, but other than that, they're obviously not going to let you slander them in their own show, because after all, you chose to be there. They keep going, but I replied to them because this is when I had just been starting to read these messages and go over, you know, what I had found. And I said, I have a message confirming a different contestant at the Vegas Games spoke with the girl who was choked by the rope. I'll show it in a future video to corroborate this, but I'm just confused why you'd confidently say that it didn't happen. They replied, well, if it did happen, then it was her own fault since we're supposed to pull the rope, so I have no idea how she got in that situation. I don't feel like I need to dissect why that was a stupid answer to what I said, so I'm not going to dissect it. But at this point, still, even though Macias just tried to straw man his way out of the conversation we were having, I just tried to extend an olive branch and just try to have discourse. I replied back to him saying, I was curious why you said it for sure didn't happen though. Also, it doesn't matter whose fault it is. You said earlier that guards stepped in every time as well, when there's a very clear example of them not doing that. You should join the Discord. I'd be interested in chatting with you more about this if you're up for it. No hate, just want more info if you have the time. He replied, yeah, it was resolved pretty quickly. He clearly didn't read my message or maybe didn't get what I had said, so I replied back, would you be able to hop in my Discord and chat? Send me a friend invite and I can chat with you privately there. Because I wanted to discuss more, and it didn't seem like he was a good texting type, and I felt like we could just chat. He replied back, people keep claiming that the strangling was on purpose and trying to put the blame on Jimmy for it when that wasn't true at all since you're since you're supposed to pull the rope, not tie it around you. So if she got strangled, then it was her own fault. LMAO, there was guards quickly to assist them when they showed clear signs if they were hurt. I am still on the search to try to find the people that are claiming that Jimmy told the employees not to do anything and that he wanted people to get choked out by the rope. I haven't found anyone that's made that argument, but if you guys happen to find them in the wild, if you could take a picture of them, that'd be cool. But they replied, nah, I'm good. I'm currently busy right now. I'm just pointing out the obvious slander against Jimmy about a girl getting strangled when it was clearly her own fault. We have moved the goalposts so far, but again, I replied, I genuinely haven't heard anybody make the claim that it was intentional, and on top of that, she didn't tie it around herself. Again, I could talk more and chat about it on Discord, and I kind of just gave a TLDR. He replied back, if she didn't tie it around herself, then there's no way she could have been strangled, and since it wasn't on purpose, then there shouldn't be any lawsuits or allegations against Jimmy whatsoever. If you got hurt, it was your own fault, as people literally dove for a flag and briefcase. It's just very clear that was an individual who messaged and talked with other people in that group chat. You know, I don't expect everyone to have known every situation or story that broke in their own group chat, because there was a lot of messages. But I just think it's interesting that someone who was there, that was a part of those games, is so sure of themselves that they're willing to go on public record and say it didn't happen. Also, if there are any contestants still watching this video that are a part of the group chats that I've been showing and you'd like to just chat, that doesn't mean go public with your story or anything like that. I just love to hear more about your experiences. I understand I'm not a super trustworthy guy given that this is my job to talk about these things, but I've worked with numerous people that have remained anonymous and I've never shared what they've had to say. But that's just my word, so take it as is. Now, one of the last two things that I want to go over is kind of just supporting the argument that I'm making that there are a couple of reasons that people wouldn't want to speak out about negative experiences. Here are a few examples of them talking to each other about being very apprehensive about what they're willing to say. This person says, I also was just sharing because I don't want anyone getting in trouble. I would hope if I did something, someone would be like, hey, don't do that since we're all in the same boat. Don't do anything that could get you sued, just don't take a chance. This person said, a lot of people have been saying they want to speak out to set the record straight. I think it's really important to remember that if the Beast team wants us to do that, they are perfectly capable of sending us an email letting us know. Unless that happens, I don't think it's a good idea to take the risk. Now, don't get it twisted. These people are talking about getting the record straight, talking about their positive experiences on the games. Because while this is going on, they saw Rosanna making videos about, leaks and things at the Vegas games, things like that. And the people that were having a good time were like, I want to talk about how great it's been so far in the Beast games. But even those individuals are being told, hey, chill out, don't do anything unless they tell us to. In this screenshot, they're actually talking about Rosanna, saying she probably wouldn't believe you because Dogpack got her convinced that their philanthropy is fake. And then they said, I mean, she'll grasp at any straws that fits her narrative. And someone else says, what do you think the chances of me getting into trouble are? And someone else says, I have no idea how they'll respond to any positive leaks, but I'm guessing regardless of negative or positive intentions, including announcing your participation in BG on the internet, would be considered breaking the NDA and therefore not worth the risk. Someone else said, I sent her a private message. I doubt she'll respond. I'd never talk publicly about my involvement in the games. And so I think twofold here, just, to keep it objective. I think a lot of these people and their worries were around they couldn't talk about even being a part of the Beast games until it was released, like in December. So maybe a lot of these people that wanted to speak out feel comfortable now that the games are over. I think specifically in regards to people talking positively, that's 100% the case. As a matter of fact, some other people were even talking about that having worked with reporters for over 12 years, they wouldn't recommend doing an interview. They say the reporter already has an angle that they are going to use. If your story doesn't fit, they will use someone else. This style of gotcha journalism only serves one purpose, and that's to grab attention. Just my 2 cents. This other individual said the extra 1K we all got from Vegas technically isn't hush money either. We signed an NDA. We were all legally obligated to hush anyway. Someone else was talking about someone who got interviewed and saying, per their recent PR email, they want any and all interviews pre-approved by them. So it might end up being a contract breach fine for her. And then people were replying to something, and someone had said probably to make sure nobody bashes the show. Someone saying it's already had plenty of controversy, and then someone else saying, I mean, it still hasn't stopped a few people from speaking out. Someone else saying, I've seen a couple of people talking about how bad it was, and saying, but compared to the amount from us and others saying how much we enjoyed it and are glad to be a part of it, I think the negativity won't be that big. But another one I'd seen as a contestant saying, I know everyone's eager, but in due time. Just wait and it will all be worth it. It would suck you broke NDA and not only get a possible lawsuit, but also they could cut your camera time. Think about that too. And someone else said, frankly, I don't have the funds to go against MrBeast in court, so I'm not saying anything. And then someone else also said, we're not supposed to publicly talk disparagingly about the show anyways. That was always in the original contract. Personally, I haven't been able to get a hold of that full contract, so I don't know the specific details, but I'm assuming it either really does say that, because some brands, that's kind of the deal you make with sponsorships, whatnot. I don't know how that works with a reality show or a competition show like this, but yeah, I can't speak for that being true, but I can speak for the fact that at the very least, this contestant believed that to be the case. And I don't think it's a stretch to believe that other contestants also believe that. Now, on top of the fear of breaking an NDA, the Beast Games also had set up an approval type system where anyone who wanted to submit social media content in regard to their experience in the Beast Games would need to submit it through this form that they had all of the contestants go through, where they would approve your ability to post that content. Now this gave people pause because, they would be worried about that. And we actually have some showcases of people just posting anyways. This person saying, I filmed 2 long-form breakdowns of my experience at BG and filmed 2 vlogs as well. I submitted the 2 long-form videos a month ago and just heard back last night with we will review and send notes ASAP. Lol, F that. I'm posting them. As per our original contract, it said we could post when our episodes come out. They're obviously trying to control the narrative, but once again, F that. This is them saying, again, something similar. It's the same individual, but they were clearly starting to get upset about the fact that they were postponing and we're not allowing them to, or we're not approving the videos that they wanted to post. Now, I know that I've talked about a lot of negative things, a lot of negative experiences that people have had, things like that. And I do genuinely kind of push more personally on the side of that there was a lot more that was going on than meets the eye. And I do think that more often than the other way, people are going to talk positively about their experiences because they have, different reasons as to why they would prefer to say something nice than to say what actually happened to them. There's a lot of money to be made and literally a career to be fleshed out by having good connections with very powerful players in the entertainment industry, like MrBeast, like that entire company. But even with that being said, I do not want it to be missed out on, even for people here that are completely against MrBeast or anything like that, to know that there were a good chunk of people that did just have a good time and were treated well. It wasn't just that's how they perceived it, but on top of that, we can just recognize that there were people that just had a good time. People like this saying, I don't know, being there for about a month, I felt respected by him and his crew at all times. Never felt in danger, even when things got emotionally painful. And there's 5 other people that are, following that up with either hearts or straight up 100. Yes, sir. And on top of that, that same individual talks about that after the cubes, he says, I needed someone to talk to because I was so out of sorts and didn't know who to trust. Jimmy personally talked with me, no mics, no cameras, no producers. It was an amazing convo and it showed me he really does care about us as people. leak that to Rosanna. So here I am leaking it to Rosanna. But the main point of showing you guys that is just, again, there are good moments. There are very good experiences that people had, very legitimate experiences. And throughout all of me showcasing these negative things to show that Jimmy has lied about no broken bones, things like that, etc., or the arguments I'm making, even with all that being said, I don't want to downplay that the intentions are right. Like, obviously the Beast Games is not set up to make people go through something torturous. There's a game to it. There's fun in there being challenges and the games being challenging. But for the show, or for Jimmy, it is very clearly not about these people having a terrible time, or at least out of their hands. It just happened because they weren't ready for it and they acted like they were. And instead of owning up to those mistakes, they're trying to keep it hush hush through, I would say, a lot of different pressures that I've kind of outlined here. That is it for the main points of my video. So if you want to click off now, by all means, go for it. But I did also want to showcase a crash out. One of the individuals that I can name and talk about is a guy named Leeland. Now, Rose here, who put out this video, which I've reacted to and talked about, I was on Beast Games, I'm shocked no one died, make mention of Leeland. Leeland, as we see here, was interviewed by Oompaville for the Beast contestants. He was a Beast contestant. He was also formerly a MrBeast employee. He worked for, as you can see here, he worked for him in 2023 and competed in the show in 2024. So contract work probably did not work for him at the same time that he was on the Beast Games. But you can see that, you don't want to burn that bridge. Did you guys know that Leeland is also unhinged? If you guys didn't watch the contest, there's a gentleman in it by the name of Jeremy, and Jeremy was a very devoutly religious man, a man of the faith. He was such a man of the faith that God actually helped him make decisions in dreams as well as in prayer as to who he would select for, like, going onto a helicopter, how he would get through making decisions and challenges. And believe it or not, some other contestants weren't happy with that. They thought it was weird. And so while people were discussing the fact that Jeremy kind of gave them the creeps because he was using his faith to direct his gameplay and kind of use it as a shield as to why he was making the decisions he was in the games, Leeland stepped to his defense. And in a message that I haven't included, he talks about how he had this very personal moment with Jeremy, where Jeremy talked about his personal life traumas and his experience with his faith, things like that. And so when Leeland sees these other contestants in this group chat talking poorly of Jeremy, or that they just didn't like the guy, Leeland crashes out. Starting here, he says in response to someone, "But all I know is that these people wouldn't have said things like this out of nowhere," referencing people who were, talking about their negative experiences with Jeremy. Leeland says, "Sure they would. Pharisees were self-righteous and had Jesus killed," referencing the biblical story. He says, "Plenty of angry, sad, and pathetic atheists that are so repelled by religion that they go out of their way to attack it too." I know there were 2,000 people in the games, but I would be hard-pressed to find anybody there that cared so much about hating religion that they went out of their way in a game show where they're trying to win money to directly attack someone because they saw them expressing their faith freely. But I digress. Leeland says, "It's one thing to have different beliefs, another entirely to convince yourself there is evil somewhere it's not." So, from this single conversation that he had with Jeremy, he has decided that this man is not evil, and anyone talking about him negatively is stupid and a bully. He says, "I won't tolerate people hating and bullying someone who doesn't deserve it. So anyone that thinks Jeremy is evil can go f themselves." So someone else kind of replies to Leeland's rant here and says, "You're being very intolerant to other people's opinions on the matter. Every situation always has two perspectives. To tell someone to go fuck themselves is completely hypocritical of those angry, sad, pathetic atheists. Me, I guess, since I'm not religious, you were just complaining about." So naturally, after seeing this, very well articulated response, Leeland takes some time to himself, does a few breathing exercises, reads over it a few more times, and then, shall I say very eloquently, mind you, says, "I don't give a flying f***." People reply back, "You have a right to your opinion just as they do. Let's leave it at that and move on from the topic." Leeland responds, "Fuck anyone who hated on Jeremy simply because he's public and vulnerable about his faith." Leeland taking inspiration from the guy in my comment section, has stuck up a nice little straw man to fight against instead of anyone in the chat. Someone replied to him saying that I don't give a flying f, saying you clearly do. And then someone trying to break up this very hostile situation saying, can't wait to see how the next episode plays out. And then someone replied to Leeland saying, I don't think anyone said they hated him for being public about his faith at all. You're taking things way out of context now. And someone else showing up to the chat said, who is Leeland and why is he emoting like a child? Did I miss something? Oh boy, yeah, you did. And to round things out, someone else later down the line, I don't know, like 20 messages later says, religion aside, Jeremy is odd and doesn't seem authentic. This is my opinion and I certainly don't mean any disrespect towards him or his fanboy. A lot of people like that one. I don't know, I feel like this guy is a bit off the rails and maybe his opinion and stance is a bit compromised by the fact that he's worked for Jimmy and has, you know, adored him for a couple years. And also seems like he will defend people that he's only had a conversation with to the ends of the world and will say f anyone who dislikes them. So maybe his support of a figure like Jimmy should not be taken as a very credible experience. But who am I to say? Maybe that was just a one-time crash out. Just kidding, he also ranted about Reddit and also when leaks happened to Rosanna and said, someone is leaking our chats to that parasite Rosanna. Be on the lookout for weak-minded people and report them to the mods. Do they wear funny hats, the weak-minded people, or like, how do you find them? Leeland also said, we need to get rid of them. Make sure they are disqualified from all future reality TV opportunities. So sick of these mind games. I know that I've covered Leeland here in this instance, but again, that video that I talked about earlier with Rose, the individual that had posted that expose, they included these screenshots as well. I might end up pulling them into a video later. I'm just not super sure of how useful it is to people that wanted new information or anything that would be, I guess, more hard hitting. I don't think this video was like the most well put together thing, but I did want to cover this information because I think it would be useful for the people that are interested in this. And personally, I don't know why, but I just want to have a video up disproving his claim that they had spoken to all those people and did not find broken bones. He lied about that. And that was the big thing that I wanted to showcase in this video, but I had so much other information that I figured might as well show the rest of it. That's it for the video. See you guys later. Adios. Peace. Bye.